Welcome to the Mouth That Roared. You are watching this on either YouTube or Facebook, but you can also check out the podcast, the audio version of this show, at Podbean.com. I thank you all for watching this. I hope you enjoy it. And now, here is the host of the show, Chris Sheehan. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's edition of the Mouth That Roared, exclusively on Podbean.com. However, you can always, like the intro says, you can go to Facebook and or YouTube to find the video versions of this show, and every other show for that matter. Now, on today's show, I would like to talk about, has television gotten too politically correct? In all honesty, this is my opinion, I really feel this way. I feel like TV has gotten extremely politically correct, to the point where it will not, nor can it be saved. I think, honestly, there are many factors as to why TV is politically correct. I mean, you could blame it on politics, you could blame it on, politics would definitely be the main cause of it, in my opinion. But you could blame it on politics, you could blame it on people's financial status as well. I mean, that could be another issue. You know, there's a lot of poor people out there. I mean, that also contributes to a lot of different storylines with different TV shows and different, factors with that. But then I also like to blame people's agenda, social agendas. Like, I like to blame certain groups for seeing all of this political correctness. And why not start with the LGBT community? I mean, because let's face it, these are the same people that are basically offended by anything and everything. I mean, really, unless it's approved by them. Any other thing, it's okay to, as long as it's approved by them, that's all that's important. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, for example, the new season of the TV show Supergirl, which is on the CW network, will be having a transgender I want to say actor, or it could be actress. I don't know which is which. I can't, honestly, I think it's an actor, but how the fuck do I know? I don't keep up with this lingo. I really don't. I don't keep up with these terms. I don't know what the hell the difference is between transgender or cisgender or any of these other genders, honestly. Nor do I really give a shit. But for the purpose of this show, the actor, or again, actress, will play a superhero character on this particular show by the name of Dreamer. This is the name of the character on the show, is Dreamer, and it will be played by an actress, or again, actor, I'm not too familiar, by the name of Nicole Maines. Now, Nicole Maines was basically, how do I say this? Not really well known. I mean, let's face it, she's been in two different shows, or maybe two different movies or something like that. And neither of them were huge successes. I mean, really. She made appearances in certain films, certain TV shows, and really, let's face it, if you were to hold a picture of this lady up, or guy up, whatever the hell, him or her, whatever, I don't know, I don't really care, I'm just trying to get this out for the purpose of this show. If you were to hold a picture up of this person, chances are you would not know who the hell they are. I mean, honestly, that's my reaction. I had no idea who the hell this person was. Nor do I really even care, honestly. But, again, for the purpose of this show, I will pretend like I care. Now, basically the Supergirl, I guess you could say writers, producers, even probably, I'm sure more than likely it's the network executives of the CW network. They're probably pushing this agenda to get more viewers from the LGBT community and more of the millennial generation as well, because as we all know, as soon as you start pushing agenda like this, then that's when everybody starts watching. So unfortunately, this is how shows nowadays maintain their ratings. This is how shows nowadays are able to be so successful. And it's all because of this. It's all because of pushing certain agendas, in my opinion anyways. Now, the thing that I really want to talk to you about, I really am tired of talking about this Nicole Maines. I mean, for somebody who's appeared in 3 shows or 4 shows and a movie of some kind, you have no room to talk, honestly. I mean, you're really a nobody when it comes to acting or basically doing anything for that matter. The only reason I think this person was hired was because of their sexuality. I think that really that's the only benefit of this, is because the fact that she would be politically correct, that she is a transgender actress or actor, whatever. Again, fuck political correctness, because I don't know what for the life of me I could say about a transgender person. I really do not know what to identify them as. I don't know what kind of pronouns or nouns in general you're supposed to use around these people, nor do I really give a shit. So with that being said, I digress, and I want to move on to the next subject, and that is the whole political correctness of TV in general. I mean, have you ever noticed that we've gone from classic TV? Now, I have to admit this. I have to admit that I am a fan. I am a big fan of classic TV shows. I'm a big fan of shows from the, I would say, 60s, 70s, even 80s and 90s as well. I mean, shows before I was born. Now, I'm only 21 years old, and for some reason, I've grown attached to many of these classic shows, like All in the Family, Maude, all of these, Three's Company. I mean, all of these kind of shows that I find to be entertaining and worth my time watching. Now, many people do not recognize these shows. I mean, nowadays, especially the millennial generation, many people do not recognize these shows because they are not played all that often, because, as we all know, many people would rather watch reruns of, like, Friends or Full House or something like that. I like Full House, by the way. I'm not knocking Full House, but what I am doing is, I don't think Full House and Friends and all these other shows should be considered classic TV. I mean, classic TV to me is anything from the 1950s, and probably from the 1950s up until like the 1980s, I would say. I mean, to me, that's what I identify as a classic, I guess you could say. So, anyway, do you ever notice that, and I've noticed this within the last couple of years, that many of these TV shows, now I know people say that they're 30, 40, 50 years old, but really, that shouldn't make a difference. I mean, they're classics for a reason. Classics should get just as much airtime, in my opinion, as, crap like RuPaul's Drag Race, or, the Hollywood Basketball Wives, or whatever the fuck they're called. I don't know what, Hollywood Divas, what, I have no idea. There's so many goddamn reality shows about Hollywood. I don't give a damn about Hollywood. But, these shows deserve just as much time, or even more so time, than the ones that are on TV nowadays. That's just my opinion. I happen to feel like a lot of these TV shows do not get the respect, nor do they get the credit that they deserve for basically forming, for creating this model of television that we know today. Now, unfortunately, you can also argue that with the political correctness factor, that could be a bad thing as well, but I happen to feel like that I happen to feel like that the classic TV shows of all the decades, the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, they've stood the test of time for a reason, because they're so, I guess you could say, I want to use the word inspirational in a sense, because they really were, some of them. I mean, some of them were also groundbreaking. I mean, they dealt with a lot of issues, I mean, there were all kinds of, racism, there was abortions, there was rape and all that kind of stuff, and, people actually made a sitcom out of this stuff, it was actually, they made it to be funny. I mean, it baffles me how TV shows nowadays kind of do, they try to do the same thing, but yet, for some reason, it's not funny. And it's not entertaining, it's not worth watching, and it's just not all around lousy, honestly. I mean, that's just how it is. But, I feel all these reboots and all is because they have nothing else to put on. So basically what they do is they say, oh, well, if we bring back this show and bring back all these cast members, we could basically make ourselves a couple of $1 million just off of a show from 20 years ago or whatever. I mean, Like, you look at the Roseanne reboot, for instance, that happened. Now, granted, Roseanne fucked it up for herself. You know, she had to tweet what she tweeted. I think, honestly, it was a disgrace that she got fired. But at the same time, I think also, you know, while I don't agree with what ABC did, I also think that they do have the right to do what they did. They have the right to fire who they want to fire. Now, granted, it was kind of a weird time to fire her because they just renewed the show, and it was, you know, everything was going so smoothly. I mean, it was one of the highest rated primetime sitcoms, and everybody enjoyed it. You know, even people that really weren't interested in Roseanne the first time around, back in the 80s and 90s, enjoyed the reboot. You know, and to have 23 million viewers or whatever watching on the premiere night was ironic. I mean, it was incredible, honestly. I mean, people never would have thought that viewers and ratings like that would be seen in 2018. I mean, you know, networks haven't seen those kind of ratings for at least 20 or 30 years before this Roseanne reboot premiered. Now, I also think that, you know, what they did with this new, the way that they ended the Roseanne reboot and they brought on this new spin-off, The Connors, I think, honestly, is disgraceful. I mean, I think the way that these actors and actresses, they all signed on to the reboot, the spin-off, whatever you want to call it, and they kind of, nobody really supported Roseanne. Like, nobody backed her up and said, you know, she made a mistake and that was it and that's the end of it. But instead, they were so quick to just, like, shun her and say that, oh, well, she's basically an evil person, you know, we want nothing to do with her, we don't want, that we do not represent Roseanne, Roseanne does not represent the morals and values of this particular show, you know, all of that la-di-da bullshit. I mean, really, it really is. I mean, it's just, people, they're just really ridiculous, honestly. I mean, they really are. I mean, Roseanne, in my opinion, and again, this is all my opinion. I mean, I don't have any proof of any of this. I don't have any proof to back any of these claims up or anything like that. But my opinion is that Roseanne made this show. She's the one that made this cast, basically, you know, be the kind of cast that they were on screen. I mean, they were that was all of her. I mean, that was her spirit and her presence and all that made the show worth watching, in my opinion. Now that she will be killed off in this new The Connors spinoff, I think, honestly, it's a disgrace, to tell you the truth. I will not be watching it, and I hope all of you listening to this podcast right now will also not watch it as well. And, you know, because I think, honestly, that should not have happened. I think that was a wrong decision on the producers and directors and all the creative people, you know, the network executives, all of those people that are involved with the production of this show. I think it was the wrong decision. I think that, if anything, they should have just ended it right then and there. But instead, you know, because it is the way it is today, nowadays, you have to move on, apparently. I mean, even if somebody says, oh, the sky looks cloudy outside, I mean, next thing you know, that's how bad it's going to be. It's going to be that bad when people say, they start, you know, saying things about the weather, and then all of a sudden that'll be offensive. I mean, you can't win with these people. You understand? I mean, it really is ridiculous, in my opinion. Now, I wish we can go back to these days of classic TV and classic everything. I mean, I really do. I mean, I wish that I could have been born in the 60s or 70s, to tell you the truth. I mean, I really wish that that's when I could have been born, because that's when life seemed to be so much better, you know, television and all especially. I mean, all the stuff back then was actually worth watching. I mean, for example, now I watch, like, I find myself watching a lot more of these old shows than I do the new shows. And, you know, one of the old shows in particular that I love watching is Match Game with Gene Rayburn. And I love game shows. I mean, game shows are my favorite thing on TV. I mean, I love game shows, period, no matter what kind of game show it is. I mean, with the exception of newer stuff, you know, I don't really care for the stuff that's on nowadays. But I love, like, the Match Game with Gene Rayburn because it was everything that today is not about. It wasn't politically correct. You know, half of the celebrities on the panel half of the time were drunk. I mean, really. And it was just an entertaining show, you know. They gave stupid answers, the contestants. The panelists gave stupid answers. And it was just worth watching, you know. It was a half hour of entertainment, and it constantly lives on through syndication and through channels like Buzzer and the Game Show Network, and, you know, many of these other old shows as well. I mean, not just Match Game, but, you know, I find myself watching the reruns and saying how much I prefer the reruns over, like, the new stuff. Like, for example, the new version with Alec Baldwin on ABC. I mean, I tried to watch one episode of his version when it first aired, and I gotta admit, I couldn't sit through, like, an hour of it. I mean, the whole show is an hour. I could only sit through about a half hour of it. I watched, like, the first half of it, and then I turned it off because it was just atrocious, in my opinion. I mean, they gave stupid answers. They gave, like, dirty answers, too, which, you know, in my opinion, that's not really what Match Game represented. Like, granted, they would give certain, you know, answers, like they'd say boobs every now and then or something like that. But for the most part, it was usually clean, you know. It was usually clean answers that the questions were the ones that got you, you know. They made the questions sound dirty. But in actuality, you weren't going to put a dirty answer on the card. Now, unfortunately, that's what it's like on today's edition of the Match Game with Alec Baldwin. Now, you know, same thing goes with, like, all the other shows. I mean, Family Feud. It could even go with sitcoms as well. I mean, you know, you go from having classic TV like All in the Family and the Jeffersons and all these other shows to Modern Family, Blackish, you know. I mean, you have shows like Will and Grace, which, how the hell did that ever get rebooted? I will never know. You know, and shit like that just is garbage, honestly. So, with all that being said, I want to wrap it up here by saying that political correctness will kill television. It will kill everything. It will kill... The reason I say it will kill television will be because I would guess, now this is just my opinion, but I'm going to say within the next 30 years that television will be a thing of the past. You know, because especially when it comes to cable TV, network TV, I think the only thing you will have left will be streaming services like Netflix and Hulu. I don't see anything else being available. I think cable TV and network TV will be obsolete at that point. I hope for my sake I'm not, because honest to God, I don't want to pay, you know, $13 a month for Netflix or whatever, however much it costs, or same thing with Hulu. Now, I have to say this about Hulu, though. I enjoy Hulu much more than I do Netflix, because Hulu has more of the classic shows, unedited. You know, granted they have commercials, but they're more, you get to see more of the show. They don't cut out any of the time. They just add on commercials in the middle or at the end. And you could watch every second of it. You know, you don't have to go without seeing certain scenes or anything like that. And I really enjoy Hulu for that. I think Hulu is worth the price. But then again, you know, after you go through a certain number of shows, then you start not being able to find stuff to watch, and it becomes a little bit of a hassle. But, you know, you got to take the good with the bad. So anyway, I want to thank you all for listening to this on Podbean.com, or if you're watching this on YouTube and or Facebook, I want to thank you all. I ask you all to please follow the Podbean page, I guess you could call it, the Podbean podcast. I also ask you all to like and subscribe to the Facebook page and YouTube channel, as well as Instagram. Follow my Instagram account at the Mouth That Roared podcast, and I thank you all for joining me, and goodbye, everybody.